Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well and staying safe during this time. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Like I said, thank you so much for checking me out. If you haven't done so, please make sure to hit that subscribe button just right below the video. Cool, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you're returning, welcome back. Thanks again for your support. I truly do appreciate having you here.
Just late yesterday afternoon or early evening yesterday, and it was a thread on Vladimir Putin and the Russian ruble here. Can you take us through this really quickly?
Yeah, well, it was announced last night, and I saw an article in Russian, so I went to translate it to see what it said, and I was astounded at what I read. So I wrote this thread late last night, and I said, Vladimir Putin just sent the final blow to the dollar and euro, which in my opinion will now force adoption of XRP as the global bridge currency. Today, Putin announced he will only accept rubles for gas sales to unfriendly nations. So basically, in a nutshell, he's calling the US and the EU unfriendly nations. And he's saying, I'm willing to sell gas. That's not a problem. He's not going to discontinue. You know, he could stop gas sales, which would really hurt Europe because 40% of their gas is purchased from Russia. So he could, really wound them and their economy, but he's not saying that. He's saying, I will sell you gas. I will offer it at the price we've contractually agreed to. However, I'm not going to accept unfriendly or compromised currencies, which are euros and dollars. He's only going to accept the Russian ruble.
And I find that to be really a hell of a statement when you think about the idea that the Russian ruble has taken such a hit. Isn't this to really try to shore up the damage that the Russian ruble and the economy in Russia has taken over this conflict, Linda?
It is, but it's also something that he is saying logically, why should he accept a currency when we're not getting along and he's been sanctioned? So why should he continue to accept those currencies? And then we also remember that that Russia and China talked about having gold-backed currencies, and that the UAE talked about trading oil with Russia and China and not using the dollar. Remember all of those conversations we've seen in the news?
I sure do. And to your point about those conversations, Linda, I mean, the gentleman in the clip that we just played was talking about more of a danger of the yuan being used as an example that you're talking about now.
Right. And we know that the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, already created an alternative to the SWIFT banking system called the SIP system, which is the cross-border interbank payment system.
That's right.
And that system was specifically created to not use the US dollar and to be able to trade without using the dollar. So this is another variation of that, because he's saying we're not going to use dollars or euros. We're going to use Russian rubles that are going to be gold-backed. And ultimately, the reason I even wrote about this is because there's no way for people to really access rubles because of the sanctions. So really, it was obvious to me that the way to solve the problem and to trade and to purchase Europe's gas from Russia is to use XRP. And one XRP currently equals 80.87 rubles. They can just use the XRP ledger, use XRP as the bridge currency, and that way anyone can access rubles. They don't have to actually physically collect them anymore.
You know, you use a term in your thread that you put out that I feel like will now force adoption of XRP. And I think that's a really key word that you used there that was very smart of you to use, because we know that there's still issues with a certain level of liquidity at the current time, right? So there is a liquidity issue where certainly we could see a collateralization of the ledger to solve that liquidity problem too, by the way. And, the other issue we have to keep in mind in this as well, playing devil's advocate, what would the globe think of using XRP to get the rubles, to get the oil, in a sense, to still have the energy they need in Europe? And would that be considered breaking sanctions as well, right?
Right. And it's not just Europe that's involved. I mean, this goes to Canada, Japan,
China,
Norway, Singapore, South Korea, Ukraine, China, Switzerland. I mean, all of Britain, all of these countries are needing to trade with Russia for energy. And so if they don't have access to rubles, what can they do? Well, they can use XRP and use it as a bridge currency to give Russia the rubles that they want and use whatever currency they have to be transposed into rubles.
Well, I think you make a great point. And again, I want to make a point about the will now force adoption. So force the globe to really address the issues at hand of the swift sanctions in this conflict, creating fractionalized zones around the world now, like BRICS itself, as you mentioned. And I believe we're going to talk about something in just a second that's new as well. And it's really the news of the BIS and the 63 banks that are really a part of the BIS, possibly working around their own platform to really not use Ripple or XRP has been the news of the last 24, 36 hours news cycle here. And I want to get to that in a second. But before we do, I want people to understand we're going to take a look at this from Yanis Varoufakis, I believe it is. And forgive me, Yanis, if I've messed up your last name. It wouldn't be my first time. But 2016, he did a clip here where he really says, we're going to go from that 1933 Bretton Woods moment, and I'm going to let him say it, but, to where we are now with the tech and the possibility. Are we, before we look at this clip, Linda, are we in that transition moment now, do you believe?
I believe we are very close to that moment because we're already starting to see that fiat currencies are changing. And this is because ultimately all governments are bankrupt. They have more debt than they're able to repay. And that means that their currencies have to be reset. And as we've talked about in the past, that is always done with a gold-backed system. And a gold-backed ruble and a gold-backed yuan have already been discussed, and we're already merging into that phase and that next transition. We're right there where we're moving out of fiat and away from that and into these gold-backed currencies.
Absolutely, it's well said. And I would like to add too, for those that think along these lines with the XRP ledger, understanding it is a decentralized exchange to bridge the conventional paper friction world into the digital world we're moving to, it can also, the XRP ledger and XRP token can be backed by many other things in gold. But to the point you're making, it really all starts with gold when you're talking about revaluing currencies. Now, I'm going to play this quick clip from Giannis here and listen to what he says about a new system and a new coin here, which he calls Cosmos, but I like to think of XRP instead.
At the level of the global political economy, imagine for a moment that our national currencies have a free-floating exchange rate with a universal global digital currency, one that is issued by the International Monetary Fund, the G20, on behalf of all humanity. And imagine further that all international trade is denominated in this currency. Let's call it the cosmos, in units of cosmos. With every government agreeing to be paying into a common fund a sum of cosmos units proportional to the country's trade deficit, or indeed to a country's trade surplus.
Now, just very quickly here, I want to remind people that this aligns greatly with what I talk about on the channel a lot about being able to collateralize the decentralized exchange, the XRP ledger, Linda. I believe that this is what he's saying here could be, in fact, exactly how we have seen non-cash agreements, according to line 82 in the SEC complaint, that Ripple had achieved and agreed to do seigniorage to prime the pump on those specific corridors for those market makers to incentivize them to hold this new bridge asset, even if they aren't using it yet. Maybe take an options contract on it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I don't see one global currency being used. I do agree with you that XRP is the bridge currency that's going to allow countries to continue to have their own currencies, rather than having the one overall currency. That I just don't see that coming.
Such a great point that you're making here, and I believe in the point you just made is exactly why we win, is because we're a complement to the system, not a threat to the system. I'm going to let the rest of this clip play.
And imagine that fund is utilized to invest in green technologies, especially in parts of the world where investment funding is scarce. This is not a new idea. It's what effectively John Maynard Keynes proposed in 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference. The problem is that back then they didn't have the technology to implement it. Now we do, especially in the context of a reunified political, economic sphere.
Now, without getting too far into that, I think you and I both know we don't like to touch the political side of that. But, we both agree that the technology does exist now. And it exists with XRP Ledger and XRP, does it not?
It does. And that's where the Project Dunbar information is so interesting, because it's going to allow banks to issue central bank digital currencies and pay each other internationally.
Absolutely.
And they had to work out the governance, the access, and the regulations, and that's already been worked on for years. Remember, and you know this, Brad, and our audience knows this, that banking cannot just be spontaneous. It has to be planned. You have to have, all the systems planned, all the banks on board, all the countries' regulations, and everything agreed to before you can have a system like this. So this has been going on in the background for years. And the governance is a huge part of it, because in the past, the United States had complete control after Bretton Woods because they were the world's reserve currency. It gave us an exceptional power in that obviously oil was traded in US dollars, but also we as the world's reserve currency didn't really have to adjust to currency fluctuation like other countries did. They adjusted to our currency. We didn't have to adjust to theirs. And now going forward, we're not going to have one world reserve currency. We're going to have the ability to settle on a level playing field amongst different currencies using XRP, I believe, as the bridge.
I'm your guy. I will keep you posted. I'm your advocate. I'll be back on a daily basis, usually multiple times per day, with these videos to keep you updated with everything going on. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't done so, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Feel free to share any of my videos with your friends, family, social media, or anybody who may care to listen. Thanks so much for your continued support. I'm always here for you. I want to help you through this time. So thank you so much for continuing to choose me. Enjoy your day, stay safe, and I'll catch you again probably in a couple hours. Thanks, everybody. See you later.